All right, I got another UFO case from 1982. This is from Connecticut. Um, let's see. From Madison, Connecticut. Duration 30 minutes. Number of observers 2. Gigantic mass of light lit up the bay, then followed me and split into 2 shooting lights over my head. That's the synopsis. I lived on the water and was sitting on the beach late one summer night with a friend. At some point, we became aware of a gigantic light with no sound, only silence and the waves, filling our little bay. As if an incredibly huge spotlight or gigantic ball of light was shining on it. I say became aware because, oddly enough, our awareness of this light, something so extraordinary as to warrant a seriously excited response, I should think, elicited in us at first no response or comment, as if we saw this kind of thing every day. And it was almost in passing that I finally asked my friend if she noticed this huge light shining in front of us. She said she did, and we simply continued to sit there and stare at it. Okay. This huge light should have lit up the pier and the rocks on either side of it, but really didn't. It just lit up the water, as if the light were somehow localized or focused on the water. I think I recall mentioning this odd light behavior to my friend while sitting on the beach, and incredibly enough, I think she may have said something like, "It must be the sun," which was a ridiculous thing to say when it's nighttime. And this out of character comment from a girl who was an impressive student, high achiever, and is now a doctor. I don't know if the light was there when we walked onto the beach and sat down, and have no memory of seeing the light emerge from the darkness. It was simply there by the time we noticed it, and I thought to ask my friend if she too was seeing it. So after a time, it may have been 5 minutes or an hour or 3 hours. I just don't have any idea of the time. I said that it was odd that no one else was out on the beach looking at this. It was impossible because it was impossible not to see it if you were awake. It was that huge, and the houses on the beach were right next to each other, with 10 houses directly facing the bay and the light. Oh. The houses on the beach were right next to, yeah. That is strange. I decided to get up and go wake up my brother to show him, as the light was constant and didn't seem to be going anywhere, and it seemed to have been there for a long time. Well, did they see, they just saw, a light? Okay. Well, let's see what happens. So I walked up the beach stairs to the top of our seawall, and just as I reached the top, the light rose up, traveled to directly over my head, stayed there for a beat, and then split. I think he means stayed there for a bit, and then split into 2 smaller lights, which then shot off in opposite directions, and that was that. It was gone. All right. I walked back to the beach. Man, that would have been really strange to witness. I walked back to the beach, and my friend still sitting there, and attempted to talk to her about it, and she turned to me and said, "I don't ever want to talk about this again." And she walked home down the beach, and we never mentioned it again. In fact, I never told anyone until about 10 years ago. 10 years later. Not because I was worried about what anybody would think, but because it didn't, oddly enough, seem newsworthy or interesting, which of course it absolutely was. Yeah, I would say it would be. Because what the heck was it? The following morning, no one else in our neighborhood mentioned it either. Perhaps they didn't see it, or like me, didn't find it newsworthy. Another odd thing is that my friend and I were only 14. Oh. I think at 14, you'd be pretty excited about seeing something like that. I know I would be. Neither of us was allowed out on the beach alone at midnight, as no one was awake in the neighborhood. And so this happened. This occurred around midnight. He said that's his best guess as to the time. So that could have been why nobody came out. Nobody else came outside to see it, but I don't know. And my friend's parents were especially strict. Her summer curfew was about 9 p.m. back then. I find it odd that we were even out there at that time, that neither of us were missed while we were out, that no one came looking for us, that neither of us got caught or got in trouble for being out of the house so late at night, and that no one else in our crowded little area saw this. From the light to our reaction to even our presence there on the beach, the whole thing could not be stranger. That is pretty strange, I would have to say. About 10 years later, I was riding in the car with my fiance and was reading a book about UFO sightings. A description of a sighting in the book was almost identical to the experience I'd had, and I read it to him and told him that I had witnessed something similar. We had been together for 7 years at that point, and when he asked me why I'd never mentioned it before, I was truly puzzled and wondered myself why I hadn't mentioned it to him or anyone before that. In fact, I've considered filling out your form many times before and haven't, because I didn't think it was really that of interest. But now that I have finally written it down, it does seem quite a strange and maybe even amazing event. Well, I would say so too. So they just saw like a light though, like well, it says gigantic. Okay, gigantic mass of light lit up the bay and then followed me and split into two shooting lights over my head. Had no sound to it. It was just a gigantic mass of light. Maybe there was a craft there, but the light was just so strong that, or maybe two craft, since it split into two, that they couldn't actually see the craft, maybe. That's possible, or it was just like a giant mass of light that they saw. It trying to see if I can pick up any more specifics of this. It was kind of like an incredibly huge spotlight or gigantic ball of light was shining on the water on the bay, right? That is well, that was really interesting. So that was from Madison, Connecticut in 1982. I guess the strangest thing is that like split up in two and then shot off into opposite directions. So they must have been pretty fast. So it said it rose up and traveled to directly over my head. So it definitely started moving, but it wasn't moving before that. It was just stationary. It was just hovering like. And then split into two smaller lights and then shot off. And into opposite directions too, so they didn't go together. So that is really strange. That's a fascinating case, though. That's a good report. Um, hopefully it's true and legit. It sounds like the person's sincere, though. Let me know what you think of this. Have you experienced anything similar to this? Um, and we will be back with more UFO videos shortly.